All right, let's dive into this explainer and reframe an emotion we usually do absolutely everything in our power to avoid: disgust. I know, we usually just think of it as a nuisance, right? Just this involuntary reflex to something gross. But the source material we're digging into today reveals it to be this incredibly profound, highly complex intelligence. It's actually an ancient evolutionary system that actively shapes our bodies, our cultures, and, believe it or not, the very foundation of our morality. So, to kick things off, get this. Ask yourself, what is literally the fastest emotion in the human body? Well, it turns out disgust activates our motor systems before our conscious mind even registers what we've just encountered. Your body is already rapidly hitting the brakes and backing up before your brain even gets the memo to process why you need to get away. To understand exactly how this works, we're going to follow this roadmap today. 1. The anatomy of recoil. 2. From pathogens to purity. 3. How culture programs disgust. 4. The weaponization of disgust. And finally, 5. Living with the revulsion.
Let's start right in with Section 1, the anatomy of recoil, the visceral authority.
You see, disgust differs completely from our other negative emotions. Think about it. When you're afraid, you move back, sure, but you're actively tracking the threat. When you're angry, you powerfully surge forward, right? You want to claim space. But with disgust, you literally recoil. You move back, but you also contract inward. You involuntarily hunch over, your stomach tightens up, your nose wrinkles, your lips pull back. Your body is basically going into an emergency lockdown, closing its apertures to prevent absorbing a threat. It's a highly specialized protective physical shutdown. And here's the wild part. Unlike just being startled or deciding you don't like something, disgust resists rational override. You literally cannot just logic your way out of it. Plus, it lingers. If something super disgusting is put on a table and then completely removed, your nervous system still registered the contamination. The residue of that violation just hangs there in the physical space, kind of like a ghost. A boundary was crossed, and your body remembers that compromise long after the physical object is actually gone. Moving right along to Section 2, from pathogens to purity, the taxonomy of revulsion. So while disgust absolutely started out as an evolutionary hack to help us avoid pathogens, things like rotting food or bad water, it expanded in a massive way over time. Researchers actually break it down into 4 distinct types. It started with core disgust for those physical gross-outs, but then it grew to include animal reminder disgust, which triggers our death anxiety when we're faced with raw biology. Next is interpersonal disgust, guarding our personal space from unwanted contact. And finally, it evolved all the way up to moral or ideational disgust, which polices ethical transgressions. Now, this concept of ideational disgust is absolutely fascinating. It means our biological hardware completely detached itself from literal physical germs. The exact same stomach-churning reflex that stops you from eating spoiled meat, yeah, it's now recruited to track symbolic pollution. We respond just as intensely, just as physically, to the violation of abstract ideas, conceptual categories, and social norms as we do to actual poison. Which brings us to Section 3, how culture programs disgust, making the constructed feel natural. So let's look at this through a hardware versus software lens. The capacity for disgust, the wrinkled nose, the sudden nausea, the physical stepping back, that is universal human hardware. Every single one of us has it. But the specific triggers, that's your cultural software. Think about it. A European might find certain fermented Asian delicacies totally revolting, right? While a Thai person might genuinely gag at European blue cheese, which, if we're being honest, is essentially just rotting dairy. And the thing is, both of these people are responding perfectly and correctly to the cultural software they were programmed with. The source material hits on something really profound here. Culture doesn't just tweak disgust. It's actually a powerful tool used to maintain group identity. We are basically taught exactly what to be repulsed by, mostly through these really subtle nonverbal cues from adults when we're just tiny kids. And because this learning gets baked in so early and is so deeply tied to our physical bodies, our local, totally constructed norms end up feeling biologically natural. We literally mistake our cultural software for our biological hardware. Now for Section 4, the weaponization of disgust, the dark side of the guardian. The text we're analyzing meticulously documents how this protective internal alarm system has been incredibly dangerously manipulated throughout history. These 4 steps, they map out a chillingly effective historical playbook for dehumanization. By intentionally associating a group with disease, using imagery like insects or rodents, and framing them as a direct threat to a society's purity, propagandists cultivate a genuine visceral revulsion in the public. This exact sequence has been systematically used in massive historical atrocities, acting as a psychological shortcut to just completely override natural human empathy. And here is the terrifying crux of the whole thing. We have to be so vigilant because inappropriate, completely manufactured disgust feels 100% identical in your gut to the natural, life-saving response you have to spoiled food. When political rhetoric starts throwing around words like cleansing, pollution, or vermin, it is intentionally trying to activate your visceral recoil. The goal is to make the unjust, and frankly, the horrific, feel not just acceptable, but like an urgent biological imperative. So how do we handle this? That's our final section, number 5, living with the revulsion, developing disgust literacy. The author suggests we really need to develop something called disgust literacy. We need to start treating our feeling of disgust as just the rough first draft of a moral response. It's raw data. It immediately tells us our personal or social boundaries feel threatened. But that raw data requires a deliberate, conscious fact check. We have to consistently hit pause and ask ourselves, wait, is this an appropriate protective warning, or is this just a cultivated prejudice that was programmed into me by my environment? Now, this is deeply challenging work because knowing a response is completely unjustified doesn't magically turn off the stomach contraction. Your body doesn't just hit update on its nervous system because you reasoned your way through a logical argument. That physical reaction is probably still going to happen. But our core responsibility is refusing to let that fleeting, visceral feeling be the thing that dictates our actions, our values, or our policies. Interestingly, the source looks over to Buddhist traditions for a highly practical approach here, specifically focusing on the concept of equanimity. Through pretty rigorous practices, like charnel ground meditations, practitioners learn how to be fully present with things that are deeply unsettling or flat-out disgusting. The ultimate goal is to hold that intense physical revulsion right alongside a deep sense of compassion at the exact same time. It's all about expanding your consciousness to contain that challenging response, rather than immediately running away from it or just blindly giving into it. So this leaves us with 2 very distinct ways to navigate our daily lives. On one hand, we have blindly obeying disgust, just accepting the body's unexamined verdicts as the absolute truth and letting an ancient survival mechanism run the show. On the other hand, we have taking disgust seriously. This means treating it as ancient intelligence. We actively put our logical, examining mind into a genuine dialogue with our reflexively disgusted body. We listen to the alarm system, sure, but we absolutely do not let it make the final rules. To wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with a question to chew on. The very next time you feel that sudden, undeniable visceral recoil, just take a brief pause. Ask yourself, what is your disgust actually trying to protect right now? And is that boundary truly yours? Thanks for exploring the profound depths of this hidden intelligence with me. See you next time.